Hello YouTube, Dave here again. One of my favorite product lines for D&D was the D&D Essentials line that came out in 2010. What it was basically was a soft reboot of the 4th edition rule set. It didn't invalidate the books that came before it. You could actually use like the player's handbook alongside of the stuff that came in this set, but it was more or less designed to present some alternative ways to structure the character classes, and to fix or to rebalance some of the monsters, especially monsters that appeared in the first monster manual for 4th edition. Because one of the common things that I've heard people say, although I've also heard people say the exact opposite, but one of the more common things that I've heard is that the monsters, especially the higher level monsters in the original monster manual, just weren't designed or weren't able to hold their own against the party of player characters, and as time went on they sort of fixed that. And the Essentials line sort of retooled the monsters that had been appeared earlier. The character classes were also, like I said, they didn't invalidate the stuff that had come before, but they built them with stronger themes in place from the beginning. It was one of the things that it was a more user-friendly approach to the 4th edition game. Because while I liked a lot of the stuff they did with the 4th edition classes, just the sheer number of options that you're presented with can be a little overwhelming. So this is something that was fixed with the Essentials line again. The books themselves were also pretty decently priced. The soft covered books, they weren't hard covers. They were soft covers, sort of like the modern day equivalent would be something like the Pathfinder pocket editions, and they were more reasonably priced. So where the hardcover book may have been, $50, 50, 55, or $60, the pocket-sized books were about $25. So it was a significant savings overall. The first two books to come out were the Heroes of the Fallen Lands, which was sort of your basic rule set style player's book. It had humans, elves, dwarves, and halflings, and then it had the fighter, cleric, rogue, and mage in it. And then you had the rules compendium, which was the section that basically goes over how to understand the mechanics of the game system. So how to do things like powers that had burst effects or blast effects, or flanking or movement. So that was sort of the crunchy sort of rules part. One of the next things to come out is one of my favorite products that I've ever picked up, and that was the Dungeon Master's Kit. This was designed with the purpose of explaining or making it easy for beginners or people that were sort of new to the edition or to the hobby in general. It was designed to help them design adventures, to build worlds, and to tell stories. So that was sort of one of the main focuses of this particular set. But it also came with a lot of other useful stuff. So today we're actually going to be taking a look at the Dungeon Master's Kit. I've had requests to do sort of a video showcasing this in the past, and I decided that since I want to go back and revisit some of the items or products that I haven't really looked at in a while, or seriously looked at in sometimes years, this was a perfect candidate for that video. And like I said, I've had some people request it. So this is the Dungeon Master's Kit. This was a box set, which again was another reason that I kind of loved the Essentials line, because they had like several different box sets as part of it, and I'm a sucker for something in a box. I mean, even to this day, I just recently picked up The Witcher 3 for the Switch, and one of the big selling points to me was just the fact that it came in a box. So it's something that transcends tabletop RPGs, but it's something that I've always been a big fan of. So on the back, it says Dungeon Mastering Made Easy. If you're a Dungeons & Dragons player looking forward to your first experience as a Dungeon Master, this box contains everything you need to get started, plus expert advice on making your game the best it can be. Create monster-infested dungeons, gather your friends, and let the fun begin. In the Dungeons & Dragons world, you create, anything is possible. The only limit is your imagination. Gives you a little sample of everything that's included in here as well. The contents are a Dungeon Master's book containing everything you need to build and run exciting Dungeons & Dragons adventures. 2 books containing Reavers of Harkenwold, a ready-to-play 2-part adventure. 2 double-sided fold-out battle maps, 3 sheets of die-cut hero and monster tokens, and a fold-out 4-panel Dungeon Master screen. Now, I don't have the tokens in this box set because I had already punched them out, and they are in a Ziploc bag contained within my D&D Essential starter set. And the reason for that is that I had the room for them in that box, and I've considered trying to separate them back out, but they got mixed up and I have no idea which ones. I mean, I could probably figure it out, but truthfully, it's something that it makes more sense for it to be in there. So I don't have the sheets of the tokens, but basically you get tokens for all of the creatures that are presented in the adventure, and then you get like some player character tokens. You have things like action points and other things that they give you tokens for as well. So there's a lot of great stuff in there. I can't show that particular aspect of it off. I do have the tokens, I just don't have them organized well enough to include in this video. The retail price was $39.99 US and $47.99 Canadian. That does sound like a pretty high price, but there's a couple things you have to consider, and we'll sort of look through that, and I'll touch more on why I was okay with this price back at the time, just looking at the stuff that's in here. So let's just go ahead and do that, shall we? So opening it up, the first thing that I have here is the DM screen, and I absolutely loved this DM screen because it has some of my favorite creatures on here, considering like it has a black dragon, and most DM screens for Dungeons & Dragons always seem to show the red dragon because it's the most powerful dragon and it's the one that most people, sort of love, I guess. But the black dragon is my favorite looking one. It just looks so like menacing and evil, and I don't know, there's just something about it. I just absolutely love it. So I was really happy to see that there. You also have some drow and a drider. I will also say that I think 4th edition D&D made driders make sense, and that's the whole subject for another video. But for those of you who are familiar with the 4th edition Drider versus the Driders that came before, I think it made more sense for them to be considered a blessing rather than a curse, considering that they're the deity that they worship looks like a Drider. But anyway, so you have that. Then we got a fire giant with some, I don't know if those are hellhounds or they're just like fire elementals that look like dogs. A really cool looking roper, and then you got the good old Mind Flayer and Umber Hulk, some vampires, Beholder, again favorite monster, and a gargoyle. Now the stuff on the other side of the screen is very similar to the other 4th edition screens, and I think this is actually just a thinner cardstock version of the deluxe DM screen for 4th edition, or the original DM screen for 4th edition. But we just have a few, things to look at here. So we have like experience point totals, attack roll modifiers, speeds for exploration and overland travel, damage by level, which is a really useful chart if you're looking to homebrew stuff. It just gives you some really good guidelines to go off of. Food and drink, light sources, monster knowledge DCs, the knowledge skills by origin, DCs to break and bust common items, then your actions, so standard, move, minor, and immediate actions. You have your opportunity action, free actions, and then you have cover and concealment, so some good information there. A list of DCs by level, again something very useful to have, broken down to easy, moderate, or hard. Then those were things that I used quite a bit. The damage by level and the DCs by level were two things that I referenced quite a bit when I was designing stuff for 4th. DCs for commonly used skills, Arcana, Athletics, so you get just some different ones here. And then you get your conditions, which are something that we're sort of familiar with. Healing a dying character, and the death and dying rules. So overall, a pretty useful screen. There's actually a lot of really good stuff on there. Then we also have this advertisement. This was actually what you would have probably seen on the very top of the box the first time that you opened it. This is for the Essentials line, and it's broken down to one side is for the players. So this is where it starts. This is the player-oriented products. And then you have for the Dungeon Masters. Notice that the Rules Compendium is listed on both sides, as well as the starter set. And the starter set is just to show you that there is a starter set for it, but the rules compendium, I would always argue it was more important that the dungeon master had it and not necessarily the players. But you know, it was only a $20 book, so it's okay to spend that kind of money, I guess. And then we have the dice set, which I showed in a previous video. All right, so then we have the 2 books for the Reavers of Harkenwold. So overall, this would be about a 60-page, about a 62, 64-page adventure. I'm not going to spoil too much here because well, first of all, it's been years since I looked at this adventure, but I remember really liking it. So Reavers of Harkenwold, Part 1, The Iron Circle, and then Part 2, The Die is Cast. We'll just sort of flip through just a little bit here. And again, one of the things that I think 4th edition did really well that I don't think it gets enough credit for is just having some really nice art. and a more consistent art style, I think, throughout most of their products. But I just think that there's just a lot of really, beautiful artwork in 4th edition. We got some nice maps here as well. So again, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this is something that I would actually like to adapt this adventure for 5th edition, because I don't think it would honestly be that difficult to do. And we're just getting into the encounter areas, and they do all the different encounter areas with their own separate description that goes into quite a bit of detail. Actually, it gives you the flavor text. I guess I should go over this a little bit. So it gives you the flavor text, the map that you would use, the stat blocks for all the creatures involved, and then different, like, their tactics, as well as just the features of the area, like the illumination, different effects that might go on, and the treasure you might find. So I always liked this, the way that this was sort of laid out, because even though you're flipping back and forth a little bit, this gives you a lot of information for running the encounter. So that was the first book. I'm not going to go into the second book here, but I will probably do a proper review of the adventure at some point. So I don't want to spoil too much here. But I do remember I absolutely loved the adventure when I first got it, and was hoping to run it. Okay, so up next we have the maps, and it's going to be kind of difficult to show everything off, but I think some of these were actually reproduced in the tactical maps for 5th edition. I'll just flip this over this way so you can sort of see the other half of it. And this was a map actually that I planned on using more than once, because it's just sort of, you got this farmstead that you can use for any sort of encounter that would take place there. And then you have what looks sort of like a castle or a keep's outer wall and sort of courtyard area leading into a mess hall. Again, I just don't have the room to show too much of it right yet, but let's just give you an idea. So that's that map. And then this map I actually liked quite a bit, and I'll show you why here in a second. So we actually have, okay, this works out. So this side here, we just have, again, some more of like a village or like a farmstead type of area. This would be a village. This is like a tavern here, and I actually have used this map. This was a map that I used when I was running the Tyranny of Dragons story, actually, from 5th edition. When they were in the town and the town was being attacked, I had the players in the town before the attack took place, at the very beginning in Greenest, and they were in the tavern, so I actually had the kobolds sort of advancing on them from there, sort of thing. So I actually did use this map for that. And then you just have like a stables and just like a one-room home. some trees there, and then on this side we have the map that we saw from like the tactical encounters that I sort of showed off or detailed. But then on the other side we have a map with like standing stones and this road here with a card on it. But then we also have a little dungeon section. And what's cool about this is that actually I think all of these maps, truth be told, but all of these maps can be recreated using the tiles that you could get in the Essentials tile sets. So like the dungeon and stuff like that, or other previous tile sets that had been released for the Dungeons & Dragons game. So it was kind of neat to see things like, you know, the dragon skeleton or the braziers, the switch, the statues in the corner. But these are all like individual tiles that you had if you bought some of those sets. So you could reproduce those if you wanted to with that. So just kind of neat. And I always kind of thought that the books here looked a lot like the 3rd edition Player's Handbook, DMG, and Monster Manual, just with the color scheme. Alright, and then we get into the main book here. So this is the Dungeon Master's book. And this is a book that was the same size and thickness as all the other Essentials books that had come out, like the Player's one and the Rules Compendium. So you got a very decent sized book here. I think it's 300, just a little under 300 pages. And again, I'm not going to go through every single page here, but there was a lot of just really good written or advice stuff that was in here. Let's see if there's with our table of contents. So the first chapter is just playing the game, which again is great stuff for beginners. The Dungeons & Dragons world. So this goes into some information about the decisions behind the 4th edition system and the world that they created. So the concept with 4th edition was that the world was like little pinpoints of light of civilization in this dark and forbidding wilderness that like seeks to engulf all these, you know, little points of light. And I actually like that idea. And I always liked the world that they created here with the Nentir Vale and Narath in general. So you get a lot of great information about that. You know, gives you information on the civilization, some of the settlements, the wild, the plains, and the Nentir Vale itself. Then you have Chapter 3, which is running the game. So it goes over some different information there, like exploration, how to sort of run that. Using skill checks, and there's even a little spot on improvising. So again, useful information to have. Combat encounters, how how the combat sort of works, the combat sequence, surprise round, initiative, the different action types, and then you get into things like building adventures, which goes over like creating encounters, creating, you know, like your worlds, creating your settings, your stuff, that, like if you want to homebrew things, there's information for that. There's information on running like campaigns based off stuff that's published, stuff that isn't, like homebrew stuff, gives you advice on just creating like campaign timelines. And then we get into our rewards, which is magic items, experience points, treasure, things like that. So again, just a lot of really good information in here. And again, just some really cool art scattered throughout. So we get the Dungeons & Dragons world, and I absolutely love that art right there. So again, just fantastic stuff here. And it gives you some ideas that you can run, like some, you know, like it gives you the core assumptions of the system of the 4th edition world that they've created, and then it gives you some suggestions on how you can alter that if you want. How to read stuff like towns and settlements, their stat blocks, the different gods, and this one actually has the evil gods in here, which the player's book talks about, but this is where you actually get to see like some of their unholy symbols. So it's just kind of cool that they're included there. And that's the holy symbol for Vecna. Languages, so it even gives you the different lettering scripts. And then of course we have our map and a little explanation of the Nentir Vale, which is a setting that again I would love to see Wizards bring back, because I think it was really, really interesting. And right now, while we're going through sort of the isolation stuff, I'm hoping to start up an online game, and the idea that I'm just going to have, because it's probably going to be like voice only, our internet connection's not super great, and with a lot of people being home and having nothing better to do but be on the internet, we've noticed that certain things have just there's been strains on certain services, so it's probably just going to be voice stuff. So I want to keep the adventures themselves simple, but the basic idea is that the player characters are they're heroes. They go from town to town, and they take jobs that people post, looking to deal with some of the problems. And I'm using the Nentir Vale. I'm using the points of light, kind of in this overwhelming darkness, or foreboding wilderness type of setting, because I think it would work really well with like the shorter, kind of like bounty hunting type of thing. So that's sort of what I'm going for there. Right, yeah, so this is just, again, a lot of really great information in here. Adventure settings, different types of setting personality. Again, how to create the encounters using XP budgets. And I have to say that I think that the 4th edition, XP budget system for designing encounters is still the best one that they've had, in my opinion. The 5th edition one is similar, and if you don't deal with like multiple creature multipliers, I think it's a lot better. I honestly can't remember the Xanathar's Guide version of it at all, because I mean I've been running games for like 20 years, so not that I'm considering myself to be an expert or super great at it or anything, but I feel comfortable enough to design adventures without having to worry about, or encounters without having to worry about XP budgets and stuff like that. So yeah, so that is the Dungeon Master's Kit for D&D Essentials. Now again, there were 3 sheets of tokens for player characters and monsters that I don't have here because I have them mixed up with the ones from the starter set, because I was using them for adventures that I've been running. But there's a lot of great stuff in here. So one of the things that, I mean, this was the most expensive. I think this was the most expensive item in the D&D Essentials line. And it's, to me, I think they did a good job of providing you with value for that money. So for me as a Canadian, I paid $48 for this particular box set. So with that, I got the book itself was $25. So this is the same size, same thickness as the other books that had been coming out, which were $24.95, I think was the retail price Canadian. So that's $25 there. The DM screen, which again is a very nice DM screen, has beautiful artwork on it, a lot of useful information. This was $15. So that's $40 of value right there with these 2 things. Then you get the 2 tactical maps, you get a 64-page, basically like a module, and you got a bunch of tokens. So to me, the 2 maps, the adventures, and the monster and player character tokens are well worth $8. So for me, again, it was the most expensive item, but it was an example of Wizards of the Coast justifying the value of that, the price point of that, which is something that I have to say is probably one of the more understated aspects of their time with 4th edition D&D. Is I think that for all the criticisms that people have, I would say that the one thing that they did beautifully was get box sets right. They gave you, great value for your dollar. They at least justified the price very, very well. So again, like a 60-page module, might be $15 in of itself. So if you just took that and you didn't have the maps, let's just say that the maps were another $3 and the sheets of tokens, well, let's just even put those at $2. That's like about a $20 or $15 to $20 value. So you're looking at, $60 around there, Canadian, for all these things sort of separate. So again, I think they did a really good job justifying the price. The adventure, it was really interesting and really well done. And I hope to do a review of that in the future. I don't want to spoil it necessarily here. And it has been, a while since the last time I really opened this box up and really went through it. So, but that is the Essentials Dungeon Masters kit. I hope you, I hope you enjoyed the video. And again, so stuff like this is why I was so irritated with some of the early 5th edition box sets, because you just got so much more here, and maybe the price was higher, but again, a nearly 300 page book, 62 pages of adventure, 2 double-sided maps, and a GM screen. Really, really excellent stuff here. So this was a fantastic box set in my opinion. And to this day, even though it's been a while since I kind of looked at it, this is still one of my favorite things that I ever picked up. And I remember how excited I was for this to release. And I didn't have a local game store in my area at the time, or one that I wanted to go to. Like the one that I had been loyal to had unfortunately shut down, and the only one that was left at the time, honestly, the guy running it was pretty shady in terms of the way that he would price his products and just sort of some of the things that he did. So I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but so I remember because I always had the day off, because most of these things came out on. So the bookstore wouldn't get it on the regular release day. They would get it like the following Tuesday. And I always had Tuesdays off at that point. So I remember getting on the bus early in the morning and getting to the mall just before it opened, just before the stores opened, and waiting there to get this box set. And then I remember taking the bus home and immediately just tearing into this and just absolutely loving, everything that was packed in there. So I still remember that experience, and like the anticipation and the excitement and just the, the enjoyment that I got out of this set. So this is one of those things in my collection that I think it's always going to be one of my favorites, and it's something that I'm always going to have good memories of. And again, I think it was just a good product. I think that this, came out at the time when people may have been more receptive to 4th edition had they not already released 4th edition 2 years prior. But I loved the idea behind the Essentials lineup set, and I love box sets, so it was sort of a win-win for me. And this is again the thing that really got me into 4th edition, was this product line. So anyway, it means a lot to me from that perspective. So let me know in the comments below if any of you picked up the Dungeon Masters kit when when it first came out, or were you into Essentials? Did you discover or get into 4th edition through Essentials, sort of like I did? Let me know in the comments below. And as much as I hate to have to say this, because I am talking about a 4th edition product, just if you're one of those people that is completely anti 4th edition and does nothing but complain about it whenever you get the opportunity to, honestly, just don't even bother. If you're going to leave a comment, be polite and respectful. And if 4th edition wasn't your thing and you can be, honest and polite about it, I don't mind. But if there's people that get really snobby or confrontational when it comes to their disdain for 4th edition, and a lot of these people are people that never played it, I should also say. But just, be respectful in the comments is all I'm trying to say. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Take care.